I first met John Schaefer when we were both in the College of Business at the University of Oklahoma, majoring in accounting. A fairly demanding major at OU. It seemed like a lot of people were weeded out of it, didn't like it, thought it was too hard, but we kind of hung around and we ended up getting to know each other, at least initially, as part of our study group to try to survive the professors in the accounting department at OU, which were quite demanding. I would say initially not close friends, but we certainly knew each other and worked together. And as time evolved at OU in particular, we became closer. And I think the real pivotal point in my relationship with John was when we both made a kind of a decision talking to one another that we wanted to go to law school and that we should probably look at other law schools because the distractions at OU Law School would have been pretty substantial for both John and I. We talked about where to look, and we both decided pretty quickly that the best place to look would be down in the state of Texas because it was pretty much like us, and there's a lot of common interests and people we knew at OU from Texas, and a lot of people thought we were traitors and leaving the state and going to the University of Texas, and I assured them we were not, but we had a great education there, and we were not as distracted because we didn't know the people. After law school, we were confronted with the same problem with, we got a draft deferments from serving on active duty, and we both were headed for active duty of 4 years in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. John was stationed in Baltimore, Maryland, at Fort Holabird, and I was stationed in Washington, D.C. at the Pentagon. We kind of still were friends, and we hung out together, and we celebrated birthdays, and we took a few trips together, and John and I both elected to go to night school at George Washington University and got a master's degree. We both got a master's degree in taxation. Got out of the military. John ended up taking a job in Dallas with a really good firm, and I came here in December of 1970 with McAfee Taft. And we didn't see each other for a while. Time passed, and the firm was kind of starting to grow, and we thought, we need somebody who's really good in taxation and also understands estate planning and wills and trusts, and that's where John was focused on that in Dallas. We recruited him, and ultimately he came to work for the firm and been here ever since and done a great job, and we've stayed very, very good friends ever since then. We've traveled all over the world together. We traveled to football games, athletic events, fun places to go. He's an incredibly curious person. And he is a great photographer and has taken photographs all over the world that are just phenomenal with all kinds of cameras. And he's really almost a professional photographer, I would say, for sure. And he could go in that business if he wanted to. Again, these are amazingly all long-term friendships that started really, I guess, at OU and continued all through thick and thin and ended up at McAfee Taft.
I first met John when he came to work at McAfee Taft, and he and I have been good friends ever since. John and I both have been involved in estate planning. John has specialized in estate planning and some in retirement activities. John had the distinction of almost bankrupting the firm in an earlier part of his career. He and Dudley Hyde were revising all of the retirement plans that the firm had to address some changes in the law. And they were working indefatigably on it, and they would break only to have dinner. And they would go across the street to the Beacon Club, and they were ordering these huge lobster dinners. And we couldn't figure out how the firm was ever going to be able to afford it. And certainly they weren't going to make a profit on the revising the plans, given all that they were eating over there. But we got through it, and John has prospered ever since. I think John's tenure at McAfee Taft has helped the firm tremendously. First of all, he's very creative, very innovative. He sets a wonderful example to other attorneys on how to go about it. He's meticulous in his detail, and he developed an estate planning software that really was better than anything on the market, and he used that extensively in his practice, as did some others. Just sort of the caboose to John. And I think that more than anything else, I think John has just set an example to the younger attorneys on how to treat clients, how to get along with clients, how to deal with all their various needs and eccentricities, and do it in an affable, professional manner. And he's just exceptional in that regard. One of the things that I admire the most about John is the fact I think he's multidimensional. He's one of these individuals that would go off on these exotic trips and always come back with not just stories of his adventures, but he would come back with these wonderful photographic collections that he'd made. He's quite a photographer. And it's not just the ability to take pictures, it's the ability to capture the environment in those pictures. Lots of people take pictures on trips. But John was able to capture the essence of the trip in his photography. And I hope when people think of him, they will think of him not simply as a lawyer, but as a multidimensional person and a guy that everyone wanted as his friend and could call his friend.
Gosh, I think I worked with John probably as a baby lawyer before I even came to McAfee Taft, and then was so grateful when I moved here in 2008 that I got to work with him directly, but I knew him for a long time before that. John is just such an intelligent, talented attorney, but also just a really caring person that clients feel taken care of with, and I think always made people feel comfortable and like they were in good hands. One of my favorite things about John is he's so well-traveled, and every time he went on a trip, he put together a book of his itinerary and photos, just a very detailed kind of diary of the trip. And one that I remember him talking about, I wish I had been able to go on it, was a trip, I think, to Memphis that John and Bill Conger and maybe Frank Hill too all went on to listen to some blues. And I'm sure there are lots of stories about that trip I never heard, but I know it was a good time.
Well, I met John Schaefer in 1978 when I first joined McAfee Taft. He was a tax and ERISA lawyer, which was real different because ERISA was brand new at the time. It was like a new area of practice of law. The real experts were John Schaefer and Dudley Hyde. I remember at the time working on a transaction and I needed some ERISA expertise, and I talked to John about it. He came down to my office and he explained what ERISA was. I remember thinking that I was learning about ERISA, and that other than subrogation and liens, ERISA is now my least favorite subject.
I want to be John. I want to be 85 years old. I want to be in great shape. I want to travel. I want to learn to speak another language, which isn't going to happen. You know, John is that guy that you look at and say, 25 years from now, I want to be John. And, you know, John was one of the key architects of our estate and planning practice. He helped build that. His contacts are deep within the community with many of Oklahoma's high net worth families where John has done their estate planning. And John's legacy will last forever because those estate plans continue today. And so the things that John has done is going to carry on forever. And John always has a smile on his face, always has something positive to say, is always in a good mood. John does a lot of things behind the scenes that people aren't aware of. He helps any lawyer that comes in and their family with estate planning issues. He has helped many of our partners navigate those things. And John doesn't publicize that. He just gets it done. And we owe a debt of gratitude to him because some of those situations are sensitive and complicated, and John steps in and takes over and does all those things.
John, you've been a good friend. I can think of conversations we've had about some business deals that we've been involved in, but the thing that I particularly appreciate, and you may not even remember this, but back in 1989, when my dad passed away, I came to you with questions about what I needed to do. I had no idea how to handle some of the issues related to his estate, and you were so kind and so caring and so helpful, and I'll always be grateful for that. I've always enjoyed our friendship and continue to wish you the very best.
John, congratulations on your retirement. It's been great working with you, going back to the days in the 100 Park Avenue building. I know you'll find lots to do in your retirement, keeping occupied in interesting and fulfilling activities, and all the best.
John, I wish you the best. You're still going to have your office on the 8th floor, so when you do come in, stop by and say hello. Thank you for all you've done for the firm, and it's most appreciated, and congratulations.
Congratulations, John. It's been a privilege being your partner. I want to wish you happiness and a lot of fun during your retirement.
John, we're going to miss you so much, and I know you won't be far, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for all of the friendship and education and ability to work together over the years. Love you so much. Take care.
Well, John, it's been a long journey. You and I have been together for many, many years, and I can truthfully say there's not been a single day when I have not enjoyed practicing or being around you. You're invariably happy, you're invariably professional, you're invariably helpful on everything that I've done, and you better not be a stranger in the future.
Hey, John, happy retirement. I think you're going to have a great time, and I know we're all in the fourth quarter of our lives, and I also know that we still have lots of things to do, and so I think let's just continue our efforts to be friends, and with our remarkable travel group that we have at this point, and do things and continue to have adventures, not only here but all over the world, and continue to be best friends. And you're on my speed dialer. Have a great retirement.